Hello, welcome to our daily 20-minute strategies for working remotely. Today, our session is about the specific thing of how to run an amazing virtual meeting. So today we're going to have a short checklist for running amazing virtual meetings. Welcome, and we look forward to playing with you today during the session. I'm Senia. I run Silicon Valley Change Executive Coaching. We have an amazing roster of coaches, and here goes about running a meeting. Why am I doing a session on a short checklist for great virtual meetings? Two main reasons. One is you have a lot of virtual meetings. You are having a lot of Zoom meetings, a lot of video meetings. I am having those meetings. And in having those meetings, they tend to be somewhat similar. Here's an agenda, here we're going to go through it. But what could make it more amazing? What could make it so that if somebody runs out of your meeting, a meeting hosted by you, that they feel like, wow, that was good, that was effective, and it was fun. So the why is we're having a lot of virtual meetings, and meetings can be better when you make them more fun and more interactive. The what we're going to do today is I'm going to literally just give you three. A short checklist means short. So there are three things in our checklist. They're going to be the plan and roles, emotions. I know that's a weird one as a checklist item. Plan and roles, emotions, and actions. That is I know the first one sounds like two, but it's really the same thing. Plan and roles, then emotions, then actions. You're going to walk away using this checklist regularly for your meetings and just checking in with yourself, whether you're running that meeting or you're in that meeting. So that's the what. How we're going to do this is I'm going to play with you. I'm going to do a little back and forth with you about how this works and whether it works for you. And finally, whom will this be useful for? Hopefully both you as someone who's leading a meeting, but also you as somebody who's in a meeting. You can also use these as a participant in a meeting, some of them, not all of them. So hello and welcome. And to start, it is around 11 in the morning where I am, Pacific time, but wherever you are and whatever time it is, you've probably been sitting. So to start, let's literally just stand up and stretch. Why? Because we've been sitting and we want to make this an energy-filled meeting just for us. So the way that I tend to do it is just to shake out one arm, just literally shake it out, including with the shoulder, and shake out the other arm. Thank you for participating with me. I'm shaking the whole screen by shaking my arms. And then reach your arms overhead, and I'll just show you, and spread your fingers wide. So really, really wide, and reach your arms overhead. And look up at your arms. We're just going to inhale for one to come together at this meeting. So here we go. Inhaling for a big count of one. And slowly dropping our arms. And just rolling our shoulders back and coming to place. How do you feel? Let me know in the comments how you feel. And also just check in with yourself. Your lungs may feel a little more spacious. Your stomach may feel more relaxed. And it's just a way for us to all come together. Okay, let's get started. We have a lot of fun things to do. I don't want you to be the kind of person who comes to a meeting and says, oh, the meeting is generally about this and this, and we generally need to decide this. Here's what I have to say. Okay, what else do people have to say? That is a little bit disorganized, and it sounds like a brainstorming session without a goal, and it's not clear who's going to say what. So I'd like you to be the kind of person who comes to a meeting where it's clear. Like, let's even use this meeting as an experiment. When you saw the title, you knew that it would be a short checklist for running amazing virtual meetings. And I've told you that this checklist, right at the beginning, I've told you that this checklist will have 3 items on it: plan and roles, emotions, and actions. And those, you'll walk out, you should have at the end of this meeting, those 3 as checklists. You'll also be able to get any of your questions resolved about how to use them once you know them. That's it. That's the goal of today's meeting. So in that experimental way, I've set it up. Now, I would like you to please tell me, so that I have a sense that I'm speaking about things that are relevant to you. What is a problem you have in meetings? And I want you to tell me that early on. I'll come back to it later, because I want to make sure that the 3 things, again, plan and roles, emotions, and actions, that they address your biggest pet peeve, or something that's not fun for you, or something that you wish were better, your hope for meetings everywhere. So please jot down for me, what is something that's not quite working, something that you'd like to be better in meetings, and I'll come back to it. So what did I just do? I asked you for things that make this webinar relevant to you. And I encourage you to do that too. You're going to have a meeting, but to make it relevant to the people in the meeting. So let's get into it. We're going to get into our 3 and then address all of the questions that you have. Thing 1, plan and roles. I know who the people on this meeting are, and I know what amazing companies you work for, what huge multinational, phenomenal, and really strong tech companies you work for. So I know that you already know the basics of things like set an agenda, have people know what they're going to get. But I'm just going to go through a few items of this plan and roles that can make it even more fun for you and also more engaging for the people at your meeting. So plan and roles. We all know that we should have an agenda. And yet how often do you say to a colleague, hey, let's meet on a call tomorrow at this time, and you send an invite with no agenda? How often do we all do that? So it is, even though we know it, we know we should be doing this, we sometimes don't quite do it anyway. So first thing, agenda, even if it's just one person and it's clear. The agenda could be in the subject line. So it could be we need to make a decision on, or we need to brainstorm this. Agenda. Again, this is still in that plans and roles category. Next part that's like an agenda, and these should all pop into your head once you think of plans and roles. Next thing is, what kind of meeting is this? And I'll give you an example. Somebody that I coached for a while, he was having an issue with a direct report. And the issue is that that person would pop into his office and that person would say, all right, let's talk about this. I always give my coaching clients the pseudonym Joe, just to give it a name. So he would say to the leader, all right, Joe, let's talk about this, and here's what's this, and here, and I have this, and da-da-da. And Joe would say he'd come out exhausted when his team member just downloads and tells him things. So one thing that Joe figured out over the course of our coaching that would be helpful is a really small tweak. When this person came into Joe's to Joe's office to start talking about things, Joe would ask, is this a decision you need to make or want my help in making? Or is this information you're giving me? Is this a decision you need to make, or is this information you're giving me? And I suggest that you be clear at the start of this meeting. Do we have a decision to make? Is this information we need to share? So even now, this meeting, this is information I'm sharing with you. And then we'll get specific to the parts that are relevant for you. So there's not a decision we need to make today, and this is a webinar as opposed to a meeting, but it's clear. We all know we have the same expectation that this is about information. So now we have the agenda, and we have what kind of meeting it is, so everybody knows what we want at the end of the meeting. I haven't quite said start with the goal in mind, but I really want to make it less about the goal in mind, but just what is it? What are we doing? What kind of meeting? In regular terms. What kind of meeting? So agenda, what kind of meeting? What do we want to get done? That's our plan. And then I'd also suggest that you give people roles. And you could do this explicitly, or you could do it more indirectly and more implicitly. Here's how I'll do it, and you'll see me looking at who the attendees are. So everybody whose first name is between A through J inclusive, all of you, please be in category 1. And everybody who is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. Everybody who is K and further, you'll be in category 2. So everybody who is A through J for your first name, you are in the role of skeptic. Everything that I'm saying today during this webinar, I would like you to have your skeptic hat on and to say, no, what Senia's saying, it's not going to make sense. It's not useful. Here's why it wouldn't work for me. So I want you to be the skeptic, and I want you to point those things out at the end. Skeptic role, please. Are you in agreement? You can just give me a quick yes in the chat to me if that works for you. So A to J, skeptic role. For those who are K to the end of the alphabet as your first name, would you please be in the and also role? So what that means is, as I'm giving you this information, could you think about, and how else could it work better? Or, and what else would make it better? In a way, it's like the supportive, growth, encouraging, but I'd like you to be in that role of, how can what Senia's saying be even better? So you're in that role. We've got the skeptics role, and we've got the even better growth role. Thank you for taking on these roles. And would you please just give me a little sign, like a yes in the chat box, that that works for you, that role works for you. So now thank you. I'm seeing that you're saying yes. So now we have two different roles, and I'm asking for this because I actually want this at the end of the meeting. Those two roles are relevant and they're useful for me in terms of giving you this information. Okay, so that is us being in the roles and in the plan and roles, and we have covered that. That's our first bullet point, and we've covered it. Just re-summarize again, that is that we have an agenda, that we know what kind of meeting it is. Do we want a decision or is this information? And that people have a role or they have something they're doing. And we can brainstorm at the end of this session about what other kinds of roles can it be, not just skeptic and supporter, it can be something else too. Lots of different options. It could be strategic, it could be tactical. So lots of different options for giving people hats to wear in this meeting. That's it, that's our first bullet point. You are, I deem you certified in the first bullet point of plan and role. That's, you're off, you're going. Now let's come to emotion. And I will be the first person to point out that that is a weird category for a meeting. The category of emotion. That is a strange, weird category. You're running a meeting, it's a business meeting. You're likely the team leader. So what does emotion mean and why is it important? I'll give you two examples for why we're getting into emotion. People that you go to meetings with, they can either energize you or they can drain your energy. Similarly, you can feel seen or you can feel completely invisible, even in a 3-person meeting, even in a 2-person meeting. The reason I bring up emotion is that as a leader, if you are working the meeting in such a way that people feel seen, they feel validated, they feel their ideas are taken into account, they're gonna sing your praises day and night because you're leading in a way that makes them feel like they're contributing, which they are. If they're not, they wouldn't be on your team. You would have other things in place like a PIP or something. So emotion. Now, what do I mean by emotion? And again, why am I making it just so important? Here are a few things that I mean by emotion. First of all is ask a first question that matters. So the question that I ask you on this call, using this as a microcosm, as an example of what we're doing, is I ask you, what's frustrating for you? What doesn't work for you? I want to know that because at the end, I want to make sure that the 3 bullet points, plan and roles, emotion and actions, that those address what's frustrating for you. Because if they don't, then either I haven't done my job or we need some sort of advanced short checklist webinar, which is silly because the point of a short checklist is a short checklist. So that's one thing that can happen, which is that you need to ask a first question that matters. Here are some examples of great first questions that catch people at an emotional level. I asked you what's frustrating. That's actually not the best question from my background, which is a positive psychology background, because you can get into a room-wide complaint session, and that's probably not what you want. A great first question is, what is something wonderful that's happened since we all last met here? What is something superb that's happened on the project? What's something great that's happened either personally or professionally? And let's just do a really quick round. Let's pretend that we're all holding like a lit match and that everybody just speaks for a moment about something really good professionally or personally. That way people are hearing about people as people. One thing this coronavirus has shown us is that, and you might see this with me too, that kids are walking in the background, that pets are crawling all over people during meetings. This is who they are and how they live. So one of the things you can do is ask what's going really well personally or professionally. Those are great first questions, and it sets a mood for the meeting. I'll even ask you a simple, if you're having a meeting with people you don't know, you typically do this anyway. Where's everyone from? Because then you have a little relationship with different locations people are from. Another wonderful one is how is everyone feeling right now? Just one word answers. In a virtual meeting, people can even type that in. So that's that first question. The next thing is the emotional tone, which is observing what's going on in the room. You already know, I know who you are on this call. You know if there's a person that's kind of checking out, or they made a comment and they got shot down by 3 people in a maybe not so nice way. You know when that's happening. And what I'm saying, and this is probably the bravest takeaway you could have from all this, is just observing and calling something out in a meeting. So if person A just said something and person B, C, and D just attacked that person, maybe they weren't yelling, but they just found complete fault with everything that person was saying, and maybe even commented about the person, like an ad hominem attack about the person, not only the comment. You can call that out. You can say, hey, I just saw person A make this comment. Totally fine that we may not agree with that. How else could we say that we don't agree while making this completely not about person A? That's tricky, and that's brave, and that requires you to be really ready at your meeting. That means having gotten enough sleep, having had water, having water with you. This is a little deeper topic that I'm getting into, but if you notice that the emotional tone is a little bit off, say something. I'll give you the best example that I've ever seen of this. I was running a meeting with 6 people, 1 leader and 5 direct team members. And the leader literally just looked down either as his cell phone or at his computer. And when he looked up, we were all laughing about something. Somebody had made a joke. And he said, hey, I feel like I just went to Mars and came back. So we filled him in, but he was referencing the fact that he wasn't in on this. So call that out. Notice if something is strange, or, oh, somebody was saying something important and somebody else laughed. That's interesting. Like, you can actually say that if you're trying to say it in a kind way. Okay, so ask a first question that matters. Observe the emotional tone. And then something that's really important is Margaret and I write about it in our book. Do I have a copy on the desk? Of course I do. We write about it in our book, Profit from the Positive. And that's play your whole bench. That's the subset of the emotional bullet point. If you play your whole bench, you're noticing when people aren't speaking, and you call on those people. Oh, what do you think, Joe? What do you think, Mary? And there are 2 ways to do that. One is to be a little more thoughtful and just have a little ring on a sheet of paper and just check off, has this person spoken, have they not? But easier for you is at the beginning, if you ask that first question and everybody goes, and at the end, if you ask an ending question, then everybody will have spoken at least 2 times. So we've got plan and roles, we have emotion, and we have the next one we're going to. Within emotion, we have a few subcategories. What's that first question that you're going to ask that's going to set a good tone? Observing the emotional tone of the room and noticing. You can even say it feels like we have less energy today on this Friday at 3 p.m. It's a valid thing to say. I'm noticing less talking. I will sometimes do that. You'll see me do this on this webinar, like say, hey, there's not a lot of interaction right now. So again, under emotional, it is the first question, it's observing the emotional tone and not noting it if that's relevant. And finally, it's about playing your whole bench. Okay, I'll take a pause here. Anything about these 2 topics, just let me know, and then we'll cover the last one. Again, it's plan and roles, emotional, and then actions. So what do I want to say to you about actions? Have them. That's it. That's why I saved this for last and why it's so simple. Make sure that your meeting is not something where everybody's talk, and then it's the end of the meeting and people have to run. And it's not really clear what the actions are. Because then what you've done is you've given yourself a to-do. You've sort of said, oh yeah, this is great, we got everything going. And then you have a to-do of summarizing all those actions. Don't do that. Make sure people summarize their own actions. With virtual meetings, people can type their actions into the chat bar. So that comes to our full conclusion. We talked about plan and roles. We talked about emotions. And we've talked about actions, walking away with specific actions and doing that before the end of the meeting time. When you have those 3 things, it's a checklist that you can run off in your head very quickly. So I have this webinar, plan and roles. Yes, I have a plan, and I've given you your roles, which I'm going to ask you about. Emotion, it's a webinar, it's not a meeting, but I would love to do that in a meeting. And finally, your actions. Do we have actions walking away from here? That is the conclusion of the formal part here, because I really wanted you to have these 3 to be able to have that checklist in your head. And now I'm happy to take questions, answer them if I can, and really just tell you that your meeting can be the most fun part of someone's day. So to end with the most fun part of someone's day on this formal part, I'm going to end with something that my 5.5-year-old son has learned in his karate class. And this will be sort of our last move before I answer your questions. Would you please do almost like you're giving yourself a hug, but then make fists. So kind of putting your 2 elbows in front, and this will be our power move for the end of this session. So you're giving yourself like a hug, then put your hand into 2 fists, and imagine you're getting attacked by picture number 1 and picture number 2. You're getting attacked by these 2. What you're going to do is just, huh, those might have been a little loud, but really about, I run amazing meetings, so let's do it on 3. And all you have to say is, huh, 1, 2, 3, huh. That's all about you and running amazing meetings. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll be here to answer questions.